put in the note. Okay, got it. So essentially, I'm running for the Atlanta City Council seat because, as most of you who live in the city of Atlanta, you're very aware of many of the challenges that we are facing. I would say many of them are the same, probably for the last couple of decades. I can remember when I came on the scene in 2001, the number one issue in the city at that time was also public safety and public trust. And so we have some serious challenges, which all of you are aware of. I don't think there's a need to go into that dialogue, but essentially I want to highlight a few things in terms of my legislative track record. And I simply just ask to be judged upon what it is that I have already done. And I think that's important. I think that when you look at the challenges that we have nationwide as well as city, locally, we have to have individuals that I think have some level of experience in terms of navigating what I believe to be murky waters. We all know that there is a contentious relationship between the state of Georgia and the city of Atlanta. I would even say it's adversarial. And I think that having some level of communication and relationships with some of our state leaders will certainly be important to having any success, I believe, in terms of serving. I have put together a white paper summary of some of the pieces of legislation that I sponsored and supported that I believe are important to the African-American community. And I put that together, and with permission of the leadership team, I'd like to just post it. I've only listed a few given the short period of time that we have, but certainly you may go to the General Assembly link and take a look at every piece of legislation that I sponsored and co-sponsored. And I think that the legislative track record and the votes speak for itself. And so again, I thank you for the opportunity to be with you. I look forward to the dialogue. And again, I appreciate the fact that my good friend Sherry is running. I know her work, and I am confident that whoever is elected will do an outstanding job. And I am committed to working with anyone who is elected, regardless of whether I win or not. And I think that's how serious, and I think that's the level of urgency that we're dealing with. And so thank you. And I certainly look forward to the conversation today.
All right, thank you, Ms. Waits. Any questions? Please raise your hand or drop it in the chat. All right, Terry Ross.
Yeah, Ms. Waits, thank you for the introduction. You know, as a possible city council person, of course, like you mentioned, there's many challenges that we face in this city. One of them, of course, is affordable housing, and right now, city council is considering some visiting the zoning ordinances in order to try to create more density within the city. And one of those initiatives is to eliminate or reduce single-family residential zoning. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, for any of us who live in the city of Atlanta, I think we are looking at our tax bills, and certainly we're challenged. And I think that when you look at minority communities and or people of color, if you live in a community like mine, I live in Sylvan Hills in District 12, and so my tax bill has probably tripled. And there are many who will be struggling to stay in their homes. There are a couple of pieces of legislation that I like in theory. One of them is Amir Farouqi's bill. Essentially, it changes zoning requirements if you live within a close proximity of a train station. The challenge with the legislation is that it also will increase your tax bill and your tax liability given the zoning changes, because it makes it mixed use. So essentially, it's great for investors and lenders, but if you are someone that has a restricted and or limited income, it could be your kiss of death and possibly put you in a situation where you can no longer afford to live in the city. So I'm sensitive to the fact that many are dealing with that challenge. I am a working person myself. As someone that has been in the landlord business for over a decade, 22 years, 2 decades, 20 years, I've had challenges with property taxes. And so with respect to zoning, I think that we must be sensitive. And so initially NPUs had one person, one vote theory in place. And now I think we're moving to a representative piece But to answer your question directly, I am in favor of legislation that will address issues of blight and that will create additional affordable opportunities. What I do not support is continually giving tax breaks and credits to developers who don't make good on community benefit agreements and or individuals who may state that for a period of time, they will have a set aside. And then a year later, those folks are forced to leave those communities that have been developed that are have some public dollars involved. And so those are things that I don't support. But nonetheless, I do like Amir Faruqi's bill in theory, but I'd like to see some provisions in there to protect low-income families as well as seniors who may be impacted by the spike in their tax bills.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Cecilia?
Yes, good afternoon, Keisha. Thanks for being with us today. Trying to get on camera here. Keisha, how do you feel about civilian oversight of law enforcement? What is your opinion on that? As you know, I currently chair that board. We have Tamara Orange on, also a representative, and Sherry's a past chair. So how do you feel about civilian oversight of law enforcement?
Well, I think that when you look at some of the challenges that we've had in the past, certainly we've got to do something very different. Oftentimes, many agencies have difficulty policing and managing themselves. I've seen different pieces of legislation over the years, Ms. Houston, and I think we have to have a level of balance. But I do believe that we should have citizen input, given that our City of Atlanta officials are put in place to represent us in our vote. And so for that reason, I am certainly open to that conversation and certainly would support that legislation. One of the pieces of legislation that I've seen in the past that my friend brought to me went a step further, I think. In fact, it gave all of the authority to these various entities. And I think that is a challenge in itself. I think that we have to have individuals who also understand that whatever ordinances that we're going to put in place, they should not be in conflict with existing pieces of legislation. And I'm referring to the state code, which is what happened with that particular bill in question. But to directly answer your question, I certainly am fully in support of having some citizen input in terms of how law enforcement conduct themselves, in addition, in terms of how we set policy.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't see any
Then
additional.
I'm sorry, I was trying to find my raise my hand button. I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, Ms. Waits, are you familiar that we already have a citizens review board in place? And if so, one of the problems that we have is that their recommendations report to the police chief instead of the mayor. And so I think at some point we may advocate that they report to the mayor. Would you be in support, or how do you feel about our existing citizen review board?
Certainly, I would fully support that. I would even be willing to sponsor and sign on to that piece of legislation. And that's one of the reasons that I'm joining you today, is to set the record straight in terms of where I stand on those issues. I think that I have a couple of former colleagues on the line. But nonetheless, to answer your question, absolutely, I would be in full support of that, certainly giving the entity more teeth. And also requiring that these findings be reported to the mayor.
I was on mute. Ray?
Hey, yes. How you doing, Ms. Waits?
Hi, Ray, how are you today? Keisha's fine.
Awesome. Great. Keisha. Yeah, so as you can see with the new census numbers, how the population, the Atlanta's black population is decreasing due to gentrification. So what policies specifically do you plan on putting in place to close the racial wealth gap between Black and white residents?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that can be done. Well, first and foremost, there are policies that are already in place to address seniors as well as individuals who may be having challenges in terms of maintaining their homes due to property taxes. So there's some age requirements there in terms of capping taxes, I think school board tax, in fact. But the other thing that I think we can do, we've had a number of developers that have come and made promises, and some have made good, some have not. And I'm referencing community benefit agreements where individuals will be given tax credits and breaks and not necessarily make good on the promises that were made to the community, or for that matter, some communities get absolutely nothing out of the deal. What I do believe that we need to do in terms of policy is ensure that whatever tax breaks or credits that are going to be given out, that those tax breaks and credits, that they are maintained and that they are completely refilled for the time period required. And so I believe that that will be helpful. And I'm referring to these mixed use development communities where there is a 30% set aside for low income families. That is one. Secondly, in neighborhoods like mine, and I'm referencing District 12 specifically, there are a number of abandoned, foreclosed, multi-family housing units. I think there is a huge opportunity to partner with HUD and to put dollars together to create housing opportunities for individuals who are interested in owning homes one day, and or for individuals who want to continue to live in the city. And so with that, I would like to see us utilize some of these multifamily units. Many of them have massive water bills. And so for that reason, they're tied up with legal reasons. But nonetheless, we could go back through the land bank and possibly create an opportunity where there could be a partnership between the city and the state of Georgia, where we can remediate these properties and create opportunities for individuals who may want to possibly live inside of the city of Atlanta who can no longer afford to do so. I also support some type of caps regarding property taxes for individuals who live in communities like mine, where we're experiencing huge spikes in our tax bills. You're going to get some pushback from the school board. And so with that being said, I think that that has to be managed properly, because any type of policy like that would have to go through the General Assembly to get approval. And so nonetheless, I would also like to see individuals who want to own a home use programs such as the ones that are afforded through Invest Atlanta. The challenge is that many of the people that I talk to about those programs who are in need, oftentimes those programs don't really trickle down to the individuals who need them most. And so again, I would simply like to see the resources that we have in place, that they go to those people who are in a position, I believe, or who have the greatest needs.
All right, Tamara.
Yes, good afternoon, Ms. Waite. My question is, as you know, there's kind of been an internal as well as government battle as far as within the city of Atlanta between some council members and the mayor, and the city of Atlanta with Fulton County as to how the city of Atlanta jail will be either repurposed for the community, or if it will remain a jail. And they allowed the Fulton County Sheriff's Office to use it. My question to you is, should you be elected, where would your support go with that issue? Would it be to go ahead and do the repurposing, or would it be to allow the Sheriff's Office to use it for housing?
Sure. Thank you for the question. This has come up in many of the questionnaires that I have received. And so again, I want to be very clear and be on the record where I stand on that issue. One of the greatest challenges that I find is that oftentimes when we have these policy conversations, the people who actually live in the city, pay taxes in the city, vote in the city are never a part of those conversations. So I'd certainly support a referendum if possible, where the citizens actually make that decision. If I had a choice in that matter, I would love to see the jail repurposed. And there's a lot of dialogue surrounding homelessness. And, it depends on what you define as homelessness. Some people say folks living on the street is homelessness. I say if you are 2 paychecks away from being homeless, you might fall in that category. But as a working class person, what I really and truly would love to see is we reach out to our partners at HUD and we repurpose the jail to assist individuals with long-term housing. I think this is a wonderful way to use a facility that at one time housed people for purpose of incarceration. I think this could be a terrific model nationwide. So that's ultimately what I would like to see. But for those ones who also have huge concerns in terms of public safety in the city of Atlanta, all of you are aware of the challenges that we're having. I think right now we're somewhere around 1,400 law enforcement officers on the books today. I think that's probably the lowest that we've had any time in the city. And certainly we have to give law enforcement the tools they need to do their job. In the role of representing the city, whether you're elected or community leader or whatever, you have to balance the needs of 2 communities. I think it's important that you say the same thing when you're talking to everyone, because I think we all know that there are many of our friends who don't do that. So essentially, we've got to find a solution in terms of what's happening at the Fulton County Jail. Do I support the idea that we're going to spend almost probably millions of dollars retrofitting that facility? That's a conversation to be had. I'm not an expert on that conversation, but I do realize that we have overwhelming challenges here in the city. And my concern is how we pay our officers a decent livable wage to keep them from going to neighboring communities and leaving the force for morale issues or for a variety of issues that we are all intimately aware of. Specifically, I would like to see the jail repurposed for the purpose of providing housing to individuals who need it the most. And that could be transitional, that could be long-term, that could be families, given this location and access to public transportation. I think it will be a terrific model. Just as we have raised funds for our facility over in DeKalb for the public safety training facility, those were public dollars. I feel confident that the corporate community would also be more than happy to make that same investment. And that's something that I would like to be a part of and lead that conversation.
Thank you for that answer. I actually had a quick question that I'm gonna go to Terry, Mr. Spooner, and then Cindy, I saw your hand raised. Did you mean to take it down? Okay, all right, so my question is, we all know of the proposed cop city that's currently being debated in the city council. So if that isn't resolved before, if you're fortunate enough to win your election before next year, what would be your take on it? What's your stance on it now, or any future proposals like this one?
That's such a complex conversation because I believe that the fire as well as the Peace Police Academy have been housed in District 12 for many years, which is literally around the corner from my home. Do we need to figure that out? Absolutely. I think the challenge, however, is given the amount of pushback that I've seen in the conversations that I've been a part of, I think we have to be careful when, and I'm referring to people who are making policy decisions. You have to be careful when you make decisions that are antithetical to that of the community, the people who put you in office. And certainly that's not something that I would want to do. But I also believe that you have to balance the needs of 2 communities. You have people, I believe, who live near that Key Road facility. It's my understanding that that's unincorporated DeKalb, not even really the city of Atlanta. So, asking them for a referendum in terms of how they feel is certainly complicated because they don't even live in the city of Atlanta. However, the city of Atlanta does own that property. So in terms of where I stand with them building the facilities, there are public dollars involved. It's my understanding corporate funding has been put in place to make this happen. Giving all of the acreage for this facility, I'm not necessarily sure if that's a good use of the property. I've taken a look at the findings in terms of the funding and all of those different things. Would I like to see an alternative? Yes. But here is what my concern is. And again, I want to be on the record and be clear. District 12 has been the dumping ground for the city of Atlanta probably most of my lifetime. I am 48 years of age. And what I can tell you unequivocally, we have a shopping center. We have the Tyler Perry studio nearby. Every time we have an opportunity to go to the next level, to bring amenities in our communities, we're oftentimes, there are dialogues in terms of landfills, there are dialogues, everything comes to District 12, but shopping centers and development. So I would simply say this, if we're not going to build it there, I'm very clear that we're probably not going to put it in Buckhead. So I would just like to see that facility go somewhere where it does not impact developmental opportunities economically for that community that's going to be purposed. Secondly, I would much rather see, we got 12 districts in the city of Atlanta. I'd love for those individuals who will be making those policy decisions. And again, if I am a part of that dialogue, I'd love for us to go from district to district and put it out to the public to see where they are. Again, I would support a referendum to see where the public stands on that issue. Because again, it just appears to me that, if you don't support it, you have a fight with the corporate community of Atlanta. If you do support it, then you have alienated public support. So I'd like to see a referendum. I'd like to see more thought in terms of alternative sites. And again, if we have raised all of these dollars that are being reported, I'd like to see some of those be used for wraparound services. And so, again, it's such a complicated conversation. I think to have that type of dialogue in a 45-minute setting, I think is a little unfair. But again, for the record, I'm not really sure where I stand on that issue. Again, it appears that the community does not want it. It seems to be something that is purely driven by corporate and other entities, and that concerns me.
All right. Thank you, Keisha. Mr. Ross?
Yeah, thank you. When I first raised my hand, it was supposed to be a question that Ms. Orange posed before me, so I thank you for that. Ms. Waits, what are your feelings about ranked choice voting?
I don't understand what you're asking in terms of if there is a potential for runoff, go ahead and pick them. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, where the candidates are ranked by the amount of they have achieved.
Okay, like what they do in New York right now?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay, thank you. And Keisha's fine. Elections are expensive. Somebody has to pick up the tab, and Julie, it's going to be you and I. So anything that would benefit the taxpayers, that would potentially, I apologize for the lighting where I am. I'm taking my lunch break at work, so it's not very bright where I am. Anything that would reduce the expense to Atlanta taxpayers, I certainly would be fully supportive of that. I think that that would be something that would be cutting edge. I think that it would remove some of the delays that we have seen and challenges that we've seen within Fulton County in terms of the reporting process. And I think it will possibly save the taxpayers a few dollars in terms of holding runoff elections. And so certainly, I would certainly be fully supportive of that. I'm not necessarily sure if that would require General Assembly approval. We have some experts on the line who could speak to that, but certainly I would support that.
Thank you. Mr. Spooner, I saw you had your hand up earlier. Did you have a question? And we still can't hear. All right, seeing no further questions. If you could, Ms. Waits, could you please drop your contact information in the chat, just in case anybody wants to get back in touch with you, or your website or anything like that, and any final remarks that you want to make?
Absolutely. So, Lyndon, again, I thank you for the opportunity to join you guys this afternoon. I am no stranger to People's Agenda. I think my first meeting of attendance was in 2001. And I believe Dr. Lowry was generally present at those meetings. And so that's been an amazing opportunity, extraordinary to sit in the room with folks like C.T. Vivian and Reverend Orange and just looking back over the years. I'm going to post my website if anybody has any questions in terms of platform and so forth. But the one thing I will leave you with is this, we can put a whole lot of stuff on the website, have a whole lot of jargon about absolutely nothing. The reality is we have people in the city that are hurting. We have families that are having challenges with affordable housing. In the next few weeks, you're going to see record numbers of evictions and foreclosures. And we have to have people who are sensitive to that. There is no piece of legislation you write that's going to change people's hearts and minds. Not possible. But I do believe we can elect people who have compassion and empathy for others to change policy that will benefit families in addition to competency. And so I believe I offer that and bring that to the table. I have always made myself available to any dialogue or any conversation. I don't indicate that I have every single magical idea. In fact, I'm very comfortable saying, I don't know. I'd like to research that. But I am a God-fearing woman. And I believe that I have a heart of service. And it is my hope that the voters will also see that. To all my colleagues who are running in the post-3 race, again, I am happy to see you in the race. I'm happy that you're elevating the conversation. And I thank all of you for the work that you do in terms of servanthood. To the People's Agenda, thank you. I look forward to coming back and continuing the dialogue. And I thank you again for the opportunity.
All right, thank you again, Keisha. And I know you had a short time window, so we appreciate you for cutting down your presentation just in order to make sure we'll be able to get not only you in, but also Ms. Williams. All right.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. All right. And so with that, we'll be going over to someone who's not a stranger as well. So Ms. Sherry Williams, who's also running for post-3 at large in the city of Atlanta. And before you start, Sherry, I just want to put this out here. We're not being city of Atlanta heavy. If you have someone in your area that you'll love to have on for our Meet the Candidate series, please send their information to either myself or Jemida. We know we are a statewide organization, so we're not just having Atlanta dominate the conversation. So if you have any relations with candidates or there's a particular candidate that you want to hear from in a municipal election in your area, please send that individual over to us.
Thank you, Lyndon.
Yep. All right, Sherry, sorry to cut you off, but the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm Sherry Williams, an Atlanta native and a 4-time breast cancer survivor. I'm also candidate for the Atlanta City Council post-3 at large. And I want to also take this opportunity to thank my opponent, Keisha Waits, for being here today. And I wish her the best also. I'm excited that my friends have encouraged me to run for this office. And I am serious about Atlanta's future. When I'm elected, I will not start doing anything. I will simply continue to do what I have been doing since I was at Charles Lincoln Harper High School. I am the daughter of Eddie Mae Williams, who's on this line, who's an at-home mom, and my father, the deceased Charles Williams, who worked on the assembly line at General Motors Doraville plant. When I was in high school, my dad and his coworkers, they used to get their cars extra clean on a Monday before Election Day. Yes, the UAW union gave people rides to the polls the next day on Election Day. And I want to say that I caught that bug at that time. I'm also the goddaughter of the Reverend Willie Taplin Barrow of Rainbow Push. Yes, I caught the bug. So I've been doing advocacy work on behalf of the underserved and the disenfranchised since, because it is the work that truly needs to be done. I have a solid track record of working with residents, elected leaders, and municipal project leaders on issues within equity land that ensures that no resident nor underserved populations are disenfranchised. Atlanta is my home, And like many of us, I want only the best for this great city. It is the birthplace of Martin Luther King Jr. It is the jewel of the South, and it's the home of the civil rights movement. Yet it can no longer be acceptable that we live in a tale of two cities. Truly, City Hall has failed to provide all of Atlanta residents with what it needs. Therefore, it needs different leadership. It needs my leadership. My vision is of a city that harnesses our strengths to carry forward the momentum of fairness, equity, and inclusion for all citizens. So as a candidate for Post 3 at large, I am here to prove that I am not only committed to improving the quality of life for everyone, but I have past and a recent body of work to prove and substantiate what I care about. It's not just rhetoric. I have been involved in my entire life with working in the community. I've headed such projects that include sidewalks that were added for kids to walk safely to the library and the YMCA on Camilton Road, street and sewer improvements that repair potholes, street lights, and traffic signals. And then there's MARTA. Traffic, there's always got to be an improvement in transit. I led the MARTA project for more MARTA for the Camilton Greenbrier Bus Rapid Transit Light Rail Transit Initiative and got that project fully funded. And in the meantime, I've always also worked to get elevators added, escalators repaired, and parking lot improvements, restrooms open, and restored bus service, while improving ADA accessibilities for wheelchairs and other disabled. And I've also always been able to increase community outreach for residential input. You know, sometimes people don't really want your input. They just want to check off the box that says that they got your input. But all of this said, I want to be serious. Atlanta has failed its residents. Of all of the issues I can focus on today, let's take two of them. Public safety. I am a strong advocate of police reform. I support community policing strategies, civilian oversight, and keeping our neighborhoods safe. Yes, as it was mentioned earlier, I served 7 years on the Citizens Review Board and chaired it for 2. So yes, I support civilian oversight. The second most important thing that our city is faced with is the problem of affordable housing. I will introduce legislation and support policies that protect neighborhoods against further gentrification. I will work with tenured residents on how to develop and grow their neighborhoods. This is important, especially in the face of there being a housing shortage and there being so many people that are living under bridges. That is not acceptable. We have enough money to decide how to distribute it in a way that will be humane for all of Atlanta's residents. And I talk about how Atlanta has failed its citizens. More specifically, look at the Greenbrier Camilton Road corridor. Look at Thomasville. And there are numerous pockets of poverty across this so-called city too busy to hate. It is now time for us to hold our elected leaders accountable. And transparency is what I've been, and I've also been a bridge builder. I'm all about solutions, and that is why I am serious about Atlanta's future, and I am the leader that is needed to take us forward on that. So with that, I will open myself for any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you, Sherry. Mr. Ross?
Yes. Thank you, Sherry, for your introduction and comments. You know, one of the things that has handcuffed the city of Atlanta for the last 3+ years is the ongoing beef between The president of the city council and the mayor of Atlanta, they've literally not worked together since they took office, and for the most part, not even spoken to one another. I was happy to hear you say that you are a bridge builder. How would you address something like that should you be elected?
Now, Terry, I could do a lot of things in connecting people, but I believe that the beef or any issues between the mayor and the Atlanta City Council president should be addressed by all of the city council members, perhaps coming together to open a dialogue so that we all, in the words of Rodney King, might get along. Because sometimes that's where a lot of our disjointed policies come from, when there is not clear, concise communication across city council members, as well as the mayor and the city council president's office. So I would say all of us as leader need to put on our big girl panties and call it a day.
All right. I saw the hand up. I'm sorry. Did you have a follow up to that, Mr. Ross?
Actually, I did not. I just wanted to thank her for it.
Okay. Sorry for cutting you off. Ray, and then before I get to you right quick, Ray, Jimmy Littles raised his hand, but now I don't see him anywhere in the meeting. So do you still have a question, Mr. Littles? Don't hear him, so Ray, go ahead.
Hey, Sherry, how you doing?
I'm great. How about you, Ray?
Wonderful. I put in the chat California Bill 1079, where they're actually stopping investors from buying up neighborhoods, foreclosed homes in bulk. I think that's something we should look at in the city of Atlanta, because nobody's really standing up to the investors. So what's your take on a bill like that?
I agree. One of the complaints that I hear from citizens all the time is that developers are moving in and they were never given the opportunity to purchase property, even when the property is sold on the courthouse steps, is typically out of the reach of the average person that does not have cash to purchase that property on the courthouse steps. So that's definitely a best practice that we need to look at.
All right, yeah, and just to follow up with what Ray said, I think it's a report that came out that 1 of 6 homes sold within the US over the past decade has gone to investors. And in the city of Atlanta, 1 out of every 4 has been bought by investors over that same time span. And so, Cher, I'm going to pose the same question that I posed to Ms. Keisha before she ended her presentation. So what is your position on Cop City, and if it's still a topic of debate if you're fortunate enough to win and take office, how would you vote on that project?
I think that is a very controversial topic, and I believe that there is no question that there needs to be a training center. Being a graduate of the Atlanta Citizens Police Academy and the Atlanta Citizens Fire Academy, I was embarrassed to go in the building, so we know it's needed. What I believe is that the location where it is being proposed to be built is not the right location. I believe that old prison farm is just as sacred as the land of the old Chattahoochee brick factory, that it needs to be preserved, and it does not need to be the location for our new police headquarters. But I do understand from some people believe that next week when City Council meets, that they will vote on it next week. So it will be interesting to see if the pressure that has been put up so far will be continued. That's against it, so.
All right, is any other questions? I'm not seeing anything in the chat. And y'all are taking it mighty easy on Sherry just because she's here every week.
Lynette,
Go.
May I ask a question?
Hold on, Jemida, then
Okay.
Demetrius, then I'll come back to you, Ray.
okay, so my question is, Sherry, having been a part of the Atlanta Citizen Review Board, having been a part of the NPU system, what would you change about the Atlanta Citizen Review Board? And are you
What was the last part?
Jemida, you went out.
She's on mute.
Yeah. We'll come back
Okay,
to.
I'll get the first part of her question.
Mhm.
She asked, what would I change about the Atlanta Citizens Review Board? I
And the
think,
MPU system.
yes, okay, for Atlanta Citizens Review Board, I would work to change the policy that gives the chief of police the final say on the recommendation that is given by the board. Right now, that's counterproductive.
All right. And your
And for the NPU system, I agree that the NPU system needs to be improved. However, I think that the NPU leaders and community members themselves that support the NPU system should be given the bandwidth and the insight to do it. We don't necessarily need people flying in to save us. Maynard Jackson was very clear about the purpose and the mission, and some of the things that are being proposed to change it would take power away from the NPUs. So that's very near and dear to my heart. So that's what I would change, is have the people with more input.
Thank you for that, Sherry. Demetrius?
Yes, Sherry, I would just have a question for you around what are your views and opinions on the Buckhead cityhood, and also what are your opinions on the decriminalization of marijuana on a city level?
I'll take your last question first. I wholeheartedly support decriminalization of marijuana, because almost every study that I've ever seen across several decades says that white and blacks use marijuana at the same rate, yet we seem to be locked up and incarcerated on too longer sentences for even small quantities of possession. So decriminalizing it and erasing / expunging the records of those who were arrested and incarcerated for it, I definitely support that. Buckhead cityhood, that is also very controversial. However, the bottom line is that there's strength in numbers. When we come together, we can accomplish more. Getting mad because you don't like the score of the game, or you don't like that things are going in your favor, is not a reason to pull away or succeed. This is almost like going back to the Confederacy, when people were succeeding when they weren't happy with what was going on. The biggest issue it appears that Buckhead has in leaving is crime. There's crime all over the city. They just have the media in order to put a spotlight on it more than we do. So I think if we would come together and use all our resources, our time and our talent, that we can solve not only the crime issue in Buckhead, but all over at Atlanta. I live in Southwest Atlanta in the Greenbrier corridor, and we have crime and we care about it also. So we got to get to the root of the issue and work together. That's what I believe about Buckhead.
Right.
I'm so glad you said that, the root of the issue. So my question got a little bit to do with cannabis as well, the legalization, the decriminalization. of marijuana, that's not enough. We got to be proactive, because I don't know if y'all know about this, but when marijuana was decriminalized in Illinois, crime went up, because guess who got in the line to open up the dispensaries? Not Black people. So you have people who are affected by the criminalization of marijuana not being able to take advantage of marijuana on the legal side. So I say we have to be proactive. We have to make sure that we are giving youth or anybody in that field that's been criminalized for it the capacity to open up dispensaries, so they won't change professions and start robbing because they're not selling marijuana anymore. So what are your views on using some of the budget using some of the city hall budget, Atlanta city budget, to go to youth Black entrepreneurship, specifically the young Black males who are part of street crews and street gangs that are doing some of the poverty related crimes?
Thank you for that question, Ray. When it comes to our youth, I think that we need to pull out all the stops and do whatever it is we need to do to help them, because they are our future leaders. And one of the things that I support is having job training that reflects the current needs as well as future needs. And as far as cannabis and marijuana goes, even when the state passed their legislation allowing licenses for people to open dispensaries, we saw what has happened, because Black folks are not included in those who will be able to reach the heights of the rules that have been set for people to participate. And I would, as the Atlanta City Council Post 3 at-large member, work with our state officials so that we can, number one, have access to the licenses, and number two, that our youth are given the opportunity to work. There's so many different types of jobs involved in that industry that pay a living wage, that, I mean, our youth would strive, because that's what it's all about. People are fighting to survive. So we need to use our resources. And if that means a part of the city budget, then let's do it, because everybody wants to be safe and our kids need something positive to do.
Demetrius?
My last and final question, Sherry, because this affects us at Fulton County as well as it does the city of Atlanta. What are your views and your thoughts on the ACDC? What should be done with it? Should it be sold to the county? Should it be given to the county? Should it be leased to the county? Should the county not be involved at all? Should it be a wraparound services building? I believe Miss forgot her name from last week. She thought about even naming it. She gave a suggestion to even name it after Reverend C.T. Vivian. So I know that there are a lot of schools of thoughts out there what should be done with ACDC. I know the mayor had a few committees that did case studies. One of those gave some opinions on certain things. So I would just like to kind of hear from you, because we know that is, you know, as you say, somewhat controversial, but it is important, because it affects, you know, jail overcrowding, you know, and all of these things. So I just would, you know, like to hear your feedback on that.
Okay, the Atlanta Detention Center is in a very, very good location. It's prime real estate. So it's no wonder that people are fighting over what it should be. I believe, and some people might not like this, that in the short term, it might not be a bad idea to allow it to house the overflow population over at the current jail in the short term. It appears that when the initial commitment was made to repurpose the jail, that no one knew what the astronomical cost of doing that would be. I believe that we should have more conversations about and instead of having conversations about or, that this should be that, this or that. I think we should be able to have our cake and eat it too. There is a need to relieve the overcrowding. That's why Fulton County wants to immediately do that so that it'll have a more humane way to care for people who are incarcerated until we are able to truly decrease the rate at which people are being arrested. And the second thing is we do need a wellness and a health center with wraparound services, but the city owns enough property for us to be able to do both. So I'd like to bring people to the table and let's talk about doing both. We have resources, let's use them.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Demetrius. Did I answer your question?
Oh, no, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ma'am. Yeah, yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Yeah,
You're welcome.
you gave some great pointers and great ideas. So no, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Jimmy Littles, followed by Joe Handy Tool and Abel Mabel Thomas.
Good afternoon, all, and I'm glad to be on the call. Sherry, I wish you the very best of success with this new endeavor. You are the right person, and I say that with a capital RIGHT, for this position, and I wish you God's blessings. My question to you would be, with all of the talk that I'm hearing lately of casino gambling trying to come into the city of Atlanta, I would like to know, what are your views on casino gambling, and if you're in favor, where would you like to see the casinos or casino placed within our city limits? Thank you.
Okay, casino gambling. They've been trying to introduce it at the legislature for, 2 or 3 decades. Another very controversial subject. My dear church member from Ebenezer Baptist Church, Jimmy Littles, thank you for that. First of all, we would have to work with state partners for that, whether I'm for it or against it. I think it should be the will of the people and the residents that it will affect. I think that in introducing casino gambling in the state of Georgia, because it has to come through the legislature, which means there will probably be a location if passed in Atlanta, then we would have to make sure that the same thing doesn't happen there as far as who owns and runs the casinos as is happening with this cannabis situation. We need equity across the board. We need equal access. So that would be a very important point to me, is that if it is approved, then we need to have measures and policies in place to make sure that we get our fair share of those licenses and those living wage jobs, not just a waiter and waitress and cleaning people's jobs. That typically is what happens. So does that answer your question, Jimmy?
Yes, thanks very much, Sherry. I appreciate you. God bless you.
Thank you. Bless you too.
Joe?
Miss Sherry, thank you so much for taking my question.
Yes, ma'am.
I recently read, it was several months back, that in one of the counties here, and I forget whether it was Clayton or wherever, they had a group of young men and women who graduated from high school with $40,000 jobs. They had been trained from their sophomore year to their up until their graduation in fire safety. And they graduated with jobs in the fire departments throughout that county. I forget what county it was, but my concern is, and I don't know whether in a position such as yours, we need to put back into schools, starting at the sophomore freshman level, training for kids who are interested in cosmetology, auto mechanics, etc., plumbing, all these jobs that pay good money and don't put you in debt to go to college. I could go on, but I would like to hear what you, and not only you, but all politicians throughout the state, throughout the country. That would be one of the ways we could solve some of this crime with our youth. When they get out, they have no direction. And so if we could start them early in school with these programs, I think it would be amazing. So Sherry, I just want to know what your thoughts are on that.
So Joe, you're always spot on your on how you are looking at these programs and looking to expand them. As I said earlier, I believe in providing job training that is reflective of the current and future jobs in demand. So yes, we need job training that is in touch with the jobs. There is a job training center in East Point. It's called and it trains at-risk youth on how to work on cars. It's called the Automotive Training Center. And it is exactly the kind of program that you are talking about that can help our kids with living wage jobs. Right now, Joe, there are several schools that have bridge programs with our universities. And that program is designed to allow high school kids to actually take classes at the junior colleges so that they can get training before they graduate in order that they may be able to make a living. Everybody's not going to college. Everybody's not going in the military. And some of these young people that are trained in these skilled jobs with living wages, they will be able to graduate and start their own business. So that's very important too. Everybody is not going to go to college, so we need to prepare for that. There is a shortage of truck drivers, and there's a shortage of auto mechanics, and there's a shortage of a lot of other professions. So yes, I agree that we need to expand job training for our youth. As far as putting it back in the school, Joe, I'm not sure how that would work, but short of putting it back in the school, let's give our school kids, more of them, access to these bridge programs that will prepare them. That's the name of the game.
That's right, Sherry. Give them the information.
Yes. And opportunity.
That's right.
Thank you for your question.
All right. Former State Rep Abel Mabel Thomas. And you're still on mute.
Okay, hello?
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Well, one thing I do want to say is I appreciate this forum to get a chance to listen to the different people. After hearing Sherry speak and then hearing one of the other candidates speak, Sherry, you are uniquely qualified to be in this particular position. And yet at the same time, sometimes the best candidate don't always win. So in other words, what you're going to have to do is to bear down and really stretch yourself, because you're the best person. I mean, I bar none, I'm listening and I know about politics. You're the best person. But you got, we can talk later. But also, what I want to know is you're running for a citywide seat, and so you may not have to worry about this, but the situation that's going on in Atlanta is a equity and equitable issue where the rich and the poor, or the gap is getting greater every day. And then they have something and I'm naming it, called the blue wall of district politics, which says.
Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute. You
And
said the blue wall. I didn't get anything after the blue wall of politics.
Yeah, the blue wall of politics, my phone kind of rang. The blue wall of politics called "You Vote for Me," council member in a district. And when you come, and whether the community votes, MPU votes no, or the ZRB votes no, you still follow ever what the city council person in that district says, as if the city council person wasn't elected by the community. And so I'm trying to see whether or not that you being citywide, you probably won't have as much problem with that. But what's going on in Atlanta is the reason that you can't get anything done. They have got it to a point where the patronage is so strong between the district political people. It's just like we believe, because they did give a verdict in favor of George Floyd, that they both did the verdict based upon the fact that it was the wrong thing to do to have the knee on the neck. But in reality, the reason the case came out the way it did is because the police officers broke the blue wall of police, and they testified against their own and told the truth. And subsequently, one after another came to the mic, as they say, and said, this is not the procedure. Other than that, they would not have convicted that Darren, whatever his name is, of that crime, because there's a blue wall in police and it's a blue wall in city council. So no matter what the community says, if the city council person is against the community and says, I want the other way, it happens that way. And so I want to know whether or not you would be willing to yourself not to go along with the game called, if you vote for me, I vote for you in your district, even if it's against the people. Being citywide, you won't have to worry about as much, but that's what's going on in City Hall. No matter what the community say, that city council person will say, if he says the opposite, no other council member usually votes against them. And the particular case was a case where they voted to put a 3 a.m. venue in English Avenue in a residential community because in this case, Antonio Brown said that it was okay. And subsequently, all those conscious council members voted with them except for Andrea Boone and Michael Bond. So I just wanted to see what your opinion is on the way they're doing it, voting for what the council say. I vote for you, you vote for me. So forget the people. What's your opinion on that?
So my opinion is I'm not a go along to get along kind of girl. I'm all about the people. I always have been. I am not afraid to be the Lone Ranger, and I'm definitely not a Judas. So being elected by the people is important to me. And that's why I try to explain to people everywhere I go. Those who fund the candidate own the candidate. So when you're funded by the people, then you're owned by the people. But when you make deals with people later, whether it's with corporate or whether it's with, other colleagues, that does not serve the interests of the people. And that's why we're in this mess that we're in now, having a tale of two cities and having pockets of poverty. So I will stand for the people no matter what. That means that there's some suffering involved, so be it. Jesus suffered. So I will stand up for the people each and every time.
Thank you. Right quick. Also, I know you probably had to go into strong consideration when people ask you to run, but is this the seat that you see yourself in? Or are you like the former candidate that runs for every seat that's available?
Well, remember, I had friends that encouraged me to run for this position so that I can take the quality and the level of work that I do to the next level. And all of my lifelong body of work has been for the people. They see that the city needs different leadership. And that's former Representative Thomas, is the reason why everyone needs to vote and vote all the way down the ballot. Because once we vote down the ballot, we can change things even if there's no term limits. So we need to be very careful and make sure that we vote in every race and we vote and know who we're voting for.
Okay, thank you so much. And congratulations on you moving forward. And I can see how your service could be a blessing, because it's time for people to take a very progressive position in terms of the community. Otherwise, the wealth gap will continue. In Atlanta, we have the very rich and the very poor and nothing in between. But the Bible says that the rich and poor meet together because the Lord is the maker of them all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Sherry, I'm not seeing any final questions or no more hands raised. So if you'd like to give us your closing statement, and then go ahead and drop your contact or website info in the chat.
Thank you. I am excited and proud to throw my hat in the ring, and I look forward to representing everyone in the city of Atlanta. I pledge to run a positive campaign, one in which I will display integrity and honesty in all interactions, along with treating everyone with the utmost respect. It will be my privilege to serve my community on a higher level, and I will listen openly to the concerns of citizens and make sure that we build a better city of Atlanta, one that thrives economically and maintains that neighborhood feel despite it being a big city. I am a servant leader with a lifelong body of work, and my background speaks for itself. From Atlanta, Georgia, my hometown, to Raleigh, North Carolina, where I went to North Carolina State University, home of the Wolfpack, and majored in political science and economics, to DC, where I did a congressional internship with then White Fowler, to Chicago, Illinois, where that's where you really cut your teeth on politics and learn how to formulate policies anyway, anytime, anyhow. And also on to Phoenix, Arizona, where there's a different kind of politics going on out west, you guys. But in the end, it's all the same. Policy is determined by those who represent elected leadership. So I hope that I will deserve your vote. I would appreciate your vote. I need volunteers, I need votes, and I need donations. Campaigns cannot run on air and hope. We need hope and we need funding. My website, which I will put in the chat, is sherryforatlanta.com. That's SherryForAtlanta.com. So if you want to change the fact that Atlanta has failed its residents, then I am your choice. Thank you for the opportunity. To the Georgia Coalition of the People's Agenda, continue the good work that you do. And I thank all my supporters who took the time out of their day to join this call. And we even have a phone number for those who do not have access to internet and email. And I'll put that in the chat also. But for those who are on the phone number is 404-397-9257. That's 404-397-9257. That's our campaign telephone line. So thanks again for this opportunity.
All right, thank you again for joining, Sherry. Keisha, she had to drop earlier, but we appreciate all of our candidates for joining and, you know, putting themselves up for scrutiny that comes along with running for public office. So we appreciate you. Don't forget to drop your information in the chat, and we know you're going to be here as you usually are.
Yes, sir.
And so with that, I know I promised Dr. Babs a second to go. Oh, Jemida, and then Jemida, I'm gonna get you after Dr. Babs because I know he's on a tight schedule. So Dr. Babs, I know you had an announcement, so
Yes.
you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I have two announcements. The first one is that Mrs. Naomi King will be 90 November 17, and we're going to be having a gala on November 13 to celebrate her birthday. That's the first announcement. The second announcement has to do with Nigeria, that Nigeria is at a precipice of very dangerous time right now, whereby the National Defense Academy was breached and a lot of soldiers were killed. And for the past few months, people have been kidnapped, adopted, and the crime and the loss of property and life has become unprecedented, that the country has lost control completely. So we need to speak out, and we need to call the attentions of everyone, including the US Congress, as well as United Nations, to come to the rescue. It is very dangerous at this point. And I thought that I put some information on the chat for those who might want to read more about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Babs. Jemida?
Thank you so much. Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
I wanted to say that to reemphasize what